Today, we'll spend the first two segments talking about the versatility of this roster, which players we might see playing multiple positions and all that fun stuff. Then we'll wrap up by talking about how Florida Gators played in the wildcard round of the NFL playoffs, only here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first to listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, have that fun stuff. Happy Thursday. I am Brandon Olson. You can find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. I'm going to get into this with Nay'Quan Wright. I'm just going to throw it out there because Nay'Quan Wright is someone who I've spoken about this so much to the point where I've convinced myself it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I've convinced myself that it will. Nay'Quan Wright had 76 carries for 326 yards and a touchdown this year, 14 catches for 179 yards and a touchdown this year. So he already played a little bit of a versatility role here, and that's great. Like he played snaps in the slot out wide. He moved around a lot already as it was, but he's someone who I watch him play. And yeah, I see a guy that can easily play running back and be a third down back kind of guy. But I also see someone who, if he lined up in the slot every single play, it would not surprise me at all. He's very much a guy where I'm like, yeah, he's a running back. He's a wide receiver. I like to use a term, even when I evaluate draft prospects, Mark Kadarius Toney is this. I like to call Nay'Quan Wright an offensive weapon, and I don't mean like, oh, Calvin Johnson, just get the ball in his hands. No, I mean, an offensive weapon is not a gadget player. It's someone who is capable of playing two positions or more, whether that's running back, receiver, tight end, things like that, tight end, receiver, tight end, running back, I don't care. But Nay'Quan Wright is that kind of guy. He is an offensive weapon. He's a great receiver. He's a talented runner. And I've mentioned this before when I talked about Billy Napier's scheme and what he likes to do and what we might see. And Nay'Quan Wright, he's often a guy that I talk about as, I think he's going to play a bigger role than people are expecting. Maybe it's not Nay'Quan. Maybe it'll be Demarcus Bowman. I don't know, but I think it'll be Nay'Quan. But, Billy Napier, he likes to send guys in the slot and send them across the formation in motion. He likes to send guys on jet sweeps. He likes to work a lot of different angles to things. And I think Nay'Quan Wright is going to be one of those guys where we'll see him line up in the slot a lot, and maybe he'll motion to the other slot. Maybe he'll motion into the backfield. Maybe he'll motion out wide. I don't care. He's just someone that I think we're going to see play the slot a lot, go in motion a lot. And I think that Nay'Quan Wright, he might not be, I don't think he'll ever be a 1,000-yard rusher or 1,000-yard receiver, but he might be a 1,000-yard scrimmage guy. I could see that happening, him getting I'm not going to try to throw numbers out there. You guys saw my predictions before the season. I suck at it. But I think Nay'Quan Wright is someone who we could see him get a good deal of touches, and we can see him get involved in this offense in a lot of different ways. And I'm excited to see that because I think he's very talented, especially with the ball in his hands, obviously. And so I want to see him get the ball in a variety of different ways. And I think Billy Napier is one of those coaches where he's like, you know what? We have one hell of a playmaker on this roster. We're going to get him the ball. And I think we'll see that in Nay'Quan Wright. Next person to talk about that I think is going to be another versatile piece in a different way is Keon Zipperer. Yes, I think Zip will be our starting tight end. I do. Yes, I think he'll primarily play tight end. I do. But I think that, Billy Napier is going to let Keon Zipperer open up a little bit by letting him play H-back, take snaps in the backfield, because we look at the rest of this tight end group, I'm not really sure who in that tight end room is better fit for an H-back kind of role that Keon Zipperer can easily play. I think Keon Zipperer can seamlessly go from inline tight end to in the slot as a big slot to in the backfield as an H-back to in the backfield next to the quarterback as kind of a fullback that's just back there like Kyle Juszczyk style. I get Keon Zipperer is a little bit bigger. But I think Keon Zipperer could be used in that similar way also. Again, this is not going to be an offense where we're like, hey, like the square peg in the round hole or whatever it is. It's not going to be like, hey, you're a square peg, you're a square peg. It's going to be like, you're a square peg. Well, maybe you can kind of fit in the round hole. Maybe that's just how it works out shape-wise. And then things like that. Where Keon Zipperer, I think he can play tight end and H-back. And I think that he'll be not relegated to that role, but I think he'll be playing that role partially because I'm not really sure whoever the number 2 tight end is going to be. I'm not really sure who they will be or where they will be lining up. I think they'd be best suited for playing the tight end role because looking at just who's on the roster, I don't see a ton of guys that I look at them and I watch them play and I'm like, H-back's a thing for them. But I think Keon Zipperer could be that kind of guy, and that's not a knock on him at all. That's a great thing. And there's teams in the NFL that use H-backs frequently. He's an athletic tight end that's a capable blocker. He can make plays in the passing game. He's likely someone that is going to step up as an offensive weapon. He can be that tight end, H-back, fullback, big slot role. He could play he has a whole bunch of hats, and that could be Keon Zipperer. And the last name to kind of, I don't want to say gloss over, but to mention a little bit, because I know a lot of people mention this one a lot, Emory Jones. I'm in here. I'm not mean. I don't know what to do, but I'm just saying, let's say he isn't the starting quarterback. Because again, this is very much an open quarterback competition. So let's say QB1 is Anthony Richardson and QB2 is Jack Miller III. Let's say that. And then you got Emory Jones as QB3. And let's say this decision is made at the end of spring practices or just some point early in the summer. Would Emory Jones transfer at that point? Yeah, he can go in the portal. He can transfer somewhere. But I feel like at that point, you're going to spend that season as a backup anyway, right? Like, sure, you can spend that season as a backup at a different school, learning a playbook and competing and maybe getting in if there's injuries. But I don't think that's what he wants to do. Emory's someone who, going into this past year, people were, I forgot which website it was. It might have been PFF had him as a potential first-round pick because his ceiling is so high as a quarterback. But then this year happened, and it didn't work out. So would he spend this year as a third-string quarterback, or would he try to kind of see, like, hey, maybe lining up in the slot will work a little bit for me? Maybe that. Maybe he could be a legitimate offensive weapon, gadget role, Taysom Hill type of guy, where, I wouldn't be opposed to it. If you see Emory Jones and he's QB3, would you care if he played in the slot? Like, would that be an issue if he just came in the slot as a gimmicky kind of role every now and then? I wouldn't mind about it. I know a lot of you guys are like, hey, move him to receiver. Maybe. I wouldn't be opposed to it, and I don't think Billy Napier would be totally closed off to the idea. And if it gets a ball player like Emory on the field, hell, do it. This is it. The putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, the championship is yours. But on your backswing, your hat falls right over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? Poor visibility because you're still relying on spreadsheets and outdated finance software. I'm not going to insult you today, boomer. To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. With NetSuite, you can automate your processes and close your books out in no time while staying well ahead of your competition. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite. For the new year, NetSuite has a new financing program for those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com/locked. So head to netsuite.com/locked for this one-of-a-kind financing offer at, really the best financial system for growing businesses. Really, let's just be honest about it. netsuite.com/locked. Looking at roster versatility part 2 over here, we're going to look at the defensive side of the ball, and we're going to have some fun with it. I'm going to start off with Princely Umanmielen. That is who I'm starting off with. I think Princely is someone we should talk about. Last year, Brenton Cox Jr. dropped back into coverage on about 11.5% of his pass defense snaps. Princely did it like 3 times. So it's like, why is he someone that we should talk about? Well, Patrick Toney, the defensive coordinator, co-defensive coordinator, along with Coach Chaos, he's going to work with creepers, which, again, I urge you to watch the defensive scheme episode from 2 weeks ago, I believe it was. It was fun. It might have been January 7th if I'm just going off the dome like that. But we're going to talk about creepers where, you have 4 down linemen. You're still sending 4 rushers, but one of the down linemen drops into coverage. I think that could be Princely. I wouldn't be surprised. And I know that I saw people that are like, oh, size-wise, I've seen people that I spoke about this before say he's too big to do that. He's basically the same size as Brenton Cox Jr. So, and Brenton Cox Jr. did it 11.5% of the time. So I don't know why. I don't know why Princely's too big to do it. It's like a 5-pound difference in the same height. So Patrick Toney, he's going to have one edge defender drop back into coverage. Kind of a lot. Like he did it, I believe like 22% of the snaps for Louisiana last year had an edge defender dropping into coverage. So we're going to see it happen. Brenton Cox Jr. did it 11.5% of the time last year. He's probably going to do it more than he did last year. But I think Princely will do it a lot as well. I think Princely will be that guy who drops back more than Brenton Cox Jr. because you look at Brenton Cox Jr. and, he said it himself in his coming back post where he's like, hey, I wasn't healthy. I led the team in sacks. I led the team in TFLs. Imagine what I could do when I'm healthy. Well, if you have Princely as the primary pass rusher, Princely is the D end that will drop back, then Brenton Cox Jr. gets to just rush the passer more often. And we saw what he did. We know that he could be a key piece of this pass rush. And I know Princely can be a key piece of this pass rush. I'm very high on Princely. I think he's going to be starting opposite Brenton Cox Jr. And I can't wait for it. And I think Princely's going to be that guy that drops back more than anything. And I think that, I think that when you drop back into coverage as a D end, it gives you a lot of freedom there. Because it's like, you can really creep up, especially creep up. Wow, because it's creepers. You can really creep up there and maybe get a pick if a quarterback's just a little lackadaisical and he's like, I'm going to throw this slant. That's going to be wide open. And then you got someone right in your space. And I think that allows Brenton Cox to be a pass rusher more. And I think that we'll see Princely there. And next up, Trey Dean. I know a lot of you guys don't like him. Very, very touchy-feely about Trey Dean over here. I like Trey Dean. I very openly said that. I think that Trey Dean and Rashad Torrance form one of the best safety duos in college football, if not the best safety duo in college football. I don't care what you guys say. I don't care what you want to throw at me. I've watched Trey Dean play football. I think he's very talented. I've watched Rashad Torrance play football. I think he's very talented. Trey Dean might not be exceptional in any area, but he's athletic. He's experienced. And he's capable of making plays. We know that for a fact, whether it's against the run or in pass coverage, he's capable of making plays. I think that we will see Trey Dean line up in a more variety of spots. He'll be deep safety. He'll be box safety. He'll be a slot corner at times or a slot defender if you don't want to call him a slot corner. He could be the nickel of the star, whatever term you want to use. He could be that kind of guy, and I think Trey Dean will be that kind of guy. But it's also Patrick Toney last year with Louisiana sent a safety blitz about 7% of the time. I mean, I don't think it'd be far-fetched, at least, to say that number could increase. And I don't think it'd be far-fetched to say Trey Dean will be the primary safety that rushes. Which it's like I get, like we give Jamal Adams flack because it's like, oh, he's a safety that rushes the passer. He's an edge rusher. Sure, I don't care. Whatever you want to call him. I think that it won't be at that extreme of a pass rusher, but I think Trey Dean is someone that we're going to see line up all over the field. I think we'll see him rush the passer more than he did this past year. I think that we'll see him use, again, in a variety of ways. This is a whole episode or whole 2 segments about versatility, and I think Trey Dean is incredibly versatile. I think he's a jack of all trades kind of guy, the jack of all trades, master of none. I think that could be Trey Dean, and I think that will be Trey Dean under Patrick Toney. And again, this defensive scheme, it's going to be just havoc. Him with Coach Chaos makes it that much cooler. But, they're going to be playing mind games, and I think Trey Dean is someone who has the experience and IQ to make those plays and to be a key piece on this defense. Finally, I have one more guy to talk about, and it's someone that I spoke about a lot since I took over the show on April 1st. And it's someone that I know fans talk about a lot. And it's someone that I know fans want to see a lot. Diwun Black. He's someone who for years Gators fans have been hyping him up, and I still believe in it. So when you look at, a segment that's like, oh, who's going to be a versatile piece for this defense? Diwun Black's going to be someone that we talk about. He's someone who we've always spoken about as, he could play linebacker. He could play safety. You could put him out at corner every now and then. You could put him on the edge. You could do whatever you want with him. Why do we think Patrick Toney wouldn't do that? Todd Grantham and Patrick Toney, their scheme, it's not, how do I put this without sounding bad? The scheme is same, but different. They do some of the same things, but Patrick Toney dials it up a bit more. Patrick Toney calls them at better times. Patrick Toney is better, basically. But the scheme, I think that I think Todd Grantham's scheme warranted Diwun Black playing. I think that this scheme will warrant Diwun Black playing. Whether he's the linebacker, whether he's the safety, whether he's the edge, especially if he's the edge, I think that'd be insane. Seeing Diwun Black line up on the edge and then dropping back with that creepers that we talked about. I think that'll be huge. So with a defensive coordinator like Patrick Toney, it's going to be sending pressure from all over the field. And I get, when I say sending pressure from all over, a lot of people are like, wow, he's going to be blitzing like a mother father. He's going to blitz a bit, but don't forget, when he's sending pressure, it's going to be with 4 guys just rushing to the left side of the O-line. And it's going to be things like that because the other DN is dropping into coverage. Stuff like that. So we're going to see pressure from all over. We're going to see wild coverage combinations. I mean, when you look at Diwun Black and Patrick Toney, has there ever been a better player-coach scheme combination than Diwun Black with Patrick Toney in this defense? Because I don't know if that's a thing that we've ever seen before. So it's going to be awesome to see. It's going to be very exciting to see. And hopefully we'll see Diwun Black play some defense this year. Anybody else with money this weekend? I know I did. Like I said, I've been on a heater. Ride the hot hand, baby. That's all I'm doing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to place a bet on all of your sports action. Obviously, Florida, you ain't been kind to me too much. Let you know that right now. But BetOnline even covers award shows, TV shows, and reality TV with real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. It's the best way to place your bets, and it's 100% free to sign up. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Make sure to use promo code LOCKEDON. That is LOCKED, no space, ON. Now to wrap up today's show, we're going to talk about some Florida Gators in the NFL playoffs, how they play. This segment might be a little bit shorter, might be a little bit longer if I want to go off on a little tangent. We'll figure it out. That's my show. Who cares? Marco Wilson's the first one that we're going to talk about because he is such, he like Trey Dean, very touchy with y'all. We got one player that's very touchy with you guys. We got Emory, we got Trey Dean, and we got Marco Wilson. All 3 players that, very touchy with y'all, but I like and I'm a fan of. Marco Wilson got targeted 3 times. He allowed 2 catches for 45 yards, including a 41-yarder to Van Jefferson, which was a little bit of a crosser out of the slot. It was what it was. Marco Wilson was there, but obviously, NFL windows are tight and throws are tight, and it works. Marco Wilson also allowed a touchdown to Odell Beckham Jr., which was a 4-yard touchdown. And I don't care who you are. If you're going up against Odell Beckham Jr., hey man, like you're gonna lose times. Like that's just how it works. So I don't care. And I get it. It's easy to clown Marco Wilson because people don't like him because he threw the shoe and there's a few other things. Not necessarily him, but family members. But the simple fact is that he didn't play great, but I think you'd be hard pressed to say that he played worse than Byron Murphy or Kevin Peterson. I think he played better than both of them. Him and Byron were very close. Kevin Peterson, not that dude. Marco Wilson played better than both of them. If you ask me, I get it where Byron Murphy is matched up more with Cooper Kupp, and that could be a thing. But, when Byron wasn't matched up with Cooper Kupp, it was rough for him. He was prepared for one thing, it seemed like. And I'm a huge Byron Murphy fan, by the way. I just want to make that clear. He's my corner one when he came out of the draft. It's just simple as I think Marco Wilson, or maybe I'm overcompensating for how much people want to clown on him for the shoe thing. But yeah, that's where we are. Next up is Van Jefferson. He only saw 1 target in that game, and it was the previously mentioned 41-yard catch against Marco Wilson. And when you look at Van Jefferson, it's like, well, he's behind Cooper Kupp. He's behind Odell Beckham Jr. Before Odell Beckham Jr., he was behind Robert Woods. And then you got, Tyler Higbee gets his targets. Running backs I'm just going to say running backs in general because they rotate. So running backs get their targets. And it's like, well, Van Jefferson, he's wide receiver 3. He's option 4. I'd put him behind Tyler Higbee. He's wide receiver 3. He's option 4. if this offense didn't run most of the time against Arizona, sure, maybe he has more catches, maybe he has more targets, whatever it may be. We've seen this offense try to get the ball to Van Jefferson before, and it's worked more times than not. I think it was the 49ers game on Monday Night Football was the one time where it's like they were clearly trying to get the ball to Van Jefferson, and it just wasn't working. That happens every now and then, but Van Jefferson, he's an elite level wide receiver 3, I think, and I know that we're going to talk about him a lot when we go into the next season, because next year should be his breakout year. This was his second year. He was a second-round pick. Your third year is when you should break out, but that also depends on like Odell and Robert Woods' recovery and all these things. But it's going to be interesting to watch. And another wide receiver that played in wildcard weekend was Demarcus Robinson. He had a solid game. He had 4 catches for 76 yards on 5 targets. And he's someone where I remember seeing him make plays, and I was like, oh, damn, Demarcus Robinson's doing it. Because going into the year, he was a starting receiver, kind of lost that and saw less snaps, saw less targets, obviously, because while he was healthy and while he was playing and while he was starting, he was kind of, I don't want to say non-existent, but he kind of went invisible at times. And that's obviously not ideal from a receiver, but when you're on an offense with the Chiefs, which similar to Van Jefferson, it's like, yeah, you're fine, but you got Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Mecole Hardman's going to get his design touches and things like that. Yeah, you're going to lose a little bit of it, especially for an offense that's so predicated on speed, where Demarcus Robinson is kind of one of those guys where I called Trey Dean. He's a jack of all trades, but a master of none. That's kind of Demarcus Robinson, where he's not great at anything, but he's pretty good at most of what he's asked to do. Next is Trent Brown. Looking at the offensive line, had a tough time. Trent Brown had a tough time. He allowed a team high 3 pressures versus the Buffalo Bills, and he's someone where I'm not big on O-line play. I'm not very great at it. I'm better at recognizing an O-line as a unit and who's the one screwing up and things like that, not necessarily looking at an individual and recognizing how good they are. But even run blocking for me, I was just like, that's not impressive what he's doing. Like, he's a mammoth of a human being. He should be like dominating people. And it just seems like he wasn't. I don't know what it is, if he's hurt, if he's out of shape, because he's had issues like that before. But yeah, it was rough for him. And I get having a rough day because you're playing a great team. But at the same time, it's playoffs. If you don't play great, you're going home. And that's exactly what happened. And it's like one of those games where I think it was like -3 with wind chill at that time. It's like you're needed as an O-lineman. And he just didn't step up. The last player to talk about is Joe Haden, who he had a rough go of things versus the Chiefs. Byron Pringle scored a touchdown on him, which I realize it makes me be like, it makes it sound like I'm like, oh, Byron Pringle scored a touchdown on him. Yikes. No, Joe Haden was targeted 6 times in coverage. He allowed 5 catches for 49 yards and that Byron Pringle touchdown that I already mentioned. He also made 2 stops in the run game. And I swear, every time I watch the Steelers and every time I watch Joe Haden, I just constantly get the thought of, he's still, I think, an average to above average corner. He's obviously not the great corner that he was with the Browns or his early Steelers days. But every time I watch him, I'm just like, man, this guy, when he recognizes or when he feels as though he shouldn't be a cornerback anymore, I think he's going to make that move to safety. And I don't think he'll be as good as Charles Woodson was, but I think he might be the best corner converted to safety that we've seen since Charles Woodson. I think Joe Haden, I see him make these hits, like he had 2 stops in the run game. I see him make these hits and these clean form tackles where you could still tell there's a bit of pop there. And it's like, with his IQ, his willingness to play in the run game, his ability to still be an above average cover safety, I think we'll see Joe Haden make that move. And, if he's with the Steelers, so be it. I don't think he'd be great there because Minka's usually their deep safety, so he'd be relegated to being a box safety, and that's he can make the tackles, but yeah, I'd like to see him be able to free roam a little bit more. But if he leaves and he goes to a creative DC, it could be really fun. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about our favorite Florida Gators. Now make your second listen Locked On Chiefs, hosted by Ryan Tracy and Chris Clark, to hear more about guys like Demarcus Robinson, Tommy Townsend, specialist love there. The Chiefs are getting ready for another Super Bowl run. Tune in. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olson. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. I'm also the founder of WholeLineSports.com, where you can find all of my written work, and I will see you all, tomorrow.